So over the weekend, Brian Gray had what I thought was a pretty intriguing tweet, talking about a talking about probably the most. I would consider him one of the most important players within the hobby. I would say Luca is probably number one. Then Trout, maybe number two. Otani, I think, or maybe I don't know. Maybe this list. Honestly, I'm thinking the list off the top of my head, but these are just some of the names. So Trout, he put out a tweet he was like unpopular opinion. Trout's one of the worst hobby buys apparently. Is he going to get 3,000 hits? Probably not. Is he going to get 500 home runs? He could. And then he goes on, GOAT, we all thought he was. No. And he said he will be a Hall of Famer, but not an iconic name after that. Or after all. Which, look, I think if you look at Trout's stats, in his last, full season that he really played, he hasn't played a full season, since 2006. 2018 he played 40 games, so I guess that you could consider that a full season. And actually, 2019 he played 134. So, but if you look at 2020, 2021, 2022, 2023, 2022 he played 119 games, so you probably could consider that a full season. Last year he's out. 2020 was obviously the shortened season. 2021 he only plays 36 games, so he probably plays in the beginning of the season and then gets hurt, or he was hurt and then he played in the middle of the season and gets hurt again. In his 162 game average, he's averaging about 40 home runs. So based on the math he has right now, he has 368 home runs. So that means he probably has to play, if he were to average the 40 home runs a season, which at 32, he's going to be 32 going into next season. I would say that's probably going to be a little bit of downturn. So if we say 30, let's just give him 30. That means it's going to take him 6 or 7 more years. And as probably the years progress, we could potentially see him lesser some of his stats. Now, he was an MVP candidate, I suppose, in that 2022 season. He was 8th in the All-Star or 8th in the MVP voting. He hasn't won an MVP since 2019. I don't know. And how this relates to sports cards is I don't think... Again, I think that this happens within sports cards a lot, where it's not that people are preying on the downfall of certain players or certain cards or certain people, but I think you could accurately predict that a player that everyone likes, that's had a couple bad seasons, that's gotten hurt, that's kind of towards the second half of his career. Mike Trout's played 13 seasons already. He has that massive contract, so he's definitely going to be playing throughout that whole contract. The Angels they just lost Otani, so the chances that Mike Trout ever wins a World Series if he plays in Los Angeles his whole career, I'd say that's probably 0, if I'm going to be completely honest. The only way I could see him winning a World Series is if he were to leave the Angels somehow, which would mean he would have to be traded, because, like he said, he just signed that massive insane contract, he was the original massive contract getter in the MLB, which is pretty wild. Well, not the original, but the original of this era, I think, because now obviously Otani with the crazy contract, you're seeing other players with $500 million, close to $1 billion. He was in that 400, I think it was 420 million over 12 years. So Trout was one of those original players that was really seeing that crazy money. So. I hope Trout bounces back. I think for the sake of just the fact that, I think he is one of the best players of this generation. Is he the best now? I would say that there's probably been other players that have, I don't know, maybe it's recency bias, if I'm going to be completely honest, because if you look at the first half of his career, Rookie of the Year, MVP candidate number 2, MVP, MVP 2, MVP 4th, MVP 2nd, MVP, he wins. So he's won multiple MVPs. So to say, if you look at the list of players that have won multiple MVPs, there can't be that many. If you look at the number of players who have won 3 MVPs, the list has to be a handful. It can't be more than a few. It can't be more than him and then maybe a couple other players. Otani probably maybe gets into that list eventually one day with multiple MVPs, I would imagine. But like I said, from a sports card perspective, yeah, sure, maybe ever since, because I do look at the way that what's happened within sports cards since 2020, really. You could say, I would consider 2018, 2019 kind of a revolutionary period within sports cards where a lot of people came into the industry and started creating content and started creating important information. 2020, 2021, there was an influx of those types of people creating content, and all they had was to look at Mike Trout and look at his career and say, yeah, he's the best player of this generation, which he was. I think if you look at like back in 2019, I think 2020, obviously with COVID, that's a little bit of a different season. But I mean, if you look at some of his stats, like I don't necessarily think, I think if Trout has his average seasons for the rest of his career, he'll get back into the conversation of best player of this generation, I think. Right now, maybe potentially not, which, like I said, if you were looking back at some of his cards back in the 2018, 2019, 2020 era, his cards for baseball were really some of the ones that were transcending the way that cards for baseball were being sold. Like that 1/1 Superfractor, if you remember, that was like one of the first like mainstream cards in that era. Obviously, there's been other, there's been the Honus Wagners, there's been sales of Mickey Mantles that have been in the news. But like that Trout card was really one of the first cards I think that broke into the mainstream in terms of like news people writing articles about cards and like writing articles about that card and diving a little bit deeper into the industry. So do I think Trout will be considered at the end of his career the best player of this generation? I'm going to predict that he will be. I'm going to predict that he probably won't get 5,000 hits because he's just not, he doesn't have like a super high batting average. He has like his career average is 300, which if you look at the past 2 seasons, it's dropped kind of significantly. But then again, I guess if you look at the first couple seasons, he batted 326, 323. So around that 300, that makes a lot of sense. So if he bats around 300, I don't see him breaking 3,000 hits just because, again, I think it's the 162 game average is 177. He's at 1,600 right now, 1,624 total hits with, like I said, 368 home runs. He'll probably break the 500 home run mark. Does he break the 3,000 hits? Maybe not. I would say probably not. But at the same time, like I said, he's not necessarily a player who is, batting for a high average because he's also a player who is out here hitting 40 home runs a season. So is it a hot take to say Mike Trout is not as good as we thought he was? Maybe. I mean, I just think he's had such an illustrious career so far that if he can kind of average out the rest of his career, I still think that he will be in the conversation for, if he plays for 20 years, that he'll be the best player from that 20 years, potentially. Maybe not stats-wise, but I think in terms of like important relevancy of a player within the MLB. So there was 2 interesting pieces of data that I stumbled upon while just, browsing Twitter as I do. So the first one is from Topps Production BB. So Topps BB, they posted from 2015 until 2023 it looks like the Series 1 approximate player with base. Approximate number of cards per player, base cards. So 2015, we're looking at just under 300. Oh, well, I guess that didn't include 2016 here, but 2017 it went down actually, so down to 2,760,000, and then it progressively increases. So then 2018 345K, 2019 486K. Oh, I guess 2020 did go down to 368K. 2021 doubled, which that's pretty interesting. 2021 went up to 700K. 2022 972K. 2023 was 1.2 million. Now, the other post that I found around this, and this is actually where I saw it, was Sports Collectors Daily, phenomenal blog. Obviously, go check them out. They tweeted out that there's approximately 900,000 this year. So I'm not 100% sure, the Topps to Topps production BB, like they are. Their numbers are very specific. So, like, they go down to even, like, last year was 1,256,167. I'm sure they have some sort of algorithm or thing based on certain parallels that fall in certain odds with packs. I'm not going to dive into that because I'm not 100% sure how they're pulling these numbers, but I do trust that they're doing a good job with these numbers, that they do know, because, although we don't have a number coming from Topps, which I think, I don't know. I mean, I don't think we ever will. That's like a pipe dream. I guess I'd like to, with some sets. I mean, I think not every set they would be able to give out this information. But so I guess there's two kind of thoughts I have here. So if we are dropping from 1.2 million, and I think there's two sides of the spectrum. Like I said, I think if we're dropping from 1.2 million to around 900,000, I would be interested to know, maybe what is the reason for that. Because over the past few years, like as you saw from 2020 to 2021, they just doubled the production of the Topps Series 1 product. I'm not 100% sure why they even did that in the first place. I mean, obviously, I think it had a lot to do with the demand. Like, I think doubling the demand from 2020 to 2021 probably made sense. I would say, like, I don't know if demand for the cards necessarily doubled. Like, I don't know. I mean, and if we're talking 100% year over year, we're probably looking at, I don't know, 60 to 70% of an increase. But this is what I've talked about in different episodes of the podcast, is that, like, they don't necessarily care if there's just more product on the shelves, because for the most part, all the product that Topps and Fanatics and Panini, all the product that they're producing has already basically been pre-sold. Like, I would say there's probably some majority of the cards and some majority of the packs and boxes that haven't been sold, but, like, I would say that there's a significant percentage of, and this is not how many boxes, it looks like these numbers are how many base cards per player. I would say a majority of their product is sold to distributors, to hobby shops, to, they do probably do a little bit of selling online, but that doesn't come until a little bit later, until the product's really out. But the pre-sale of the product, I don't know if there are, like, I guess maybe there was the pre-sale, and I'm not 100% sure. I mean, this is probably an interesting question for somebody who maybe owns a hobby shop, is, like, have they seen, like, have they had any pushback on how much of this they can buy, first of all? Which, when it comes to distribution for hobby shops, a lot of the time, what ends up happening is that if you want to buy Topps Series 1, they make you buy other products that aren't as desirable, so that way they can get those out the door. But I would be interested, from a Topps and Fanatics perspective, how early in the process they are pre-selling this product. Because if they pre-sold this product in 2020, I'm sure there was, I wouldn't be surprised, and I know that I'm going to contradict myself a little bit, I wouldn't be surprised if the demand doubled from year to year. I understand that they're trying to make money here, and especially with Topps, because at that time this was pre-Fanatics, so they were still trying to go public, so they were still trying to up their stock here and make more money. So, a doubling in production, I don't love the move necessarily, especially for Series 1. I mean, sure, it is the flagship product, so it is a product that should be easy to find. But, I mean, to be honest, I've never really had an issue, even when it was hard to find products, finding Topps Series 1 or any flagship product from Topps, to be honest. So, like I said, I would be interested to know, like, how far along in the process did Topps look at this and say, we have already sold 100%? Like, because one of the main reasons why I could see them doing this is, like, let's say hypothetically, these numbers are not exactly correct. Like I said, these are number of base card players. These are the number of individual cards for base cards for players. So, like, let's say Topps put out their pre-sold and they sold, let's say this number should have been more like in the, $500,000 or the 500,000 range. Like, maybe they sold out at that number and people continued to ask. That's why they're like, okay, well, we can just add an extra 200K to the orders. I like I said, the number's not exactly, but I think you get the point of what I'm trying to say. Now, the increase from 2020 at 368K to 1.25 million in 2023, I think was pretty dramatic. So, like, if they're saying, like, if the demand wasn't there, that's one of the only reasons why I could really see them decreasing the print run of these cards. If we're going down from 1.2 million to 900,000, I would say maybe the demand must not be there. That's really the only thing I can think of, because for Topps and Panini, the only reason why I could see them decreasing print runs is because there's just less demand. Like, because if there was the demand, they would just print these things until they couldn't print them anymore. They would just print as much as they could because they know they're going to pre-sell. They know that they're going to sell a ton of stuff. Like, they know that these products are going to, maybe not sell out necessarily, but they're going to sell to a point where it's like, you're not going to be able to sell any more of it, I guess is one way to look at it. Because the other thing is, I just wonder, like, if there is that increase, like, the question I think I have for cards in general is, like, how much responsibility, which I think this may be even a whole different topic for another show. It's the second part of the show, so I'll kind of dive into it a little bit. But, like, how much responsibility do sports card companies have in maintaining the health of the industry? Because the increase of 368,000 total individual player base cards to 1.2 million is pretty that's pretty wild, over a 4-year span. Like, if this goes to the question, are sports cards valuable because people like them, or do people like them because they're valuable? And I think you could make an argument for either one, but the overall question of, like, should sports card companies look at this and say, well, yeah, sure, we could make X amount more dollars, but does that in over a 10-year span? Like, when we look at, let's say when 2025 comes around, and we're looking at this from a 10-year perspective, did the increase in print run help or hurt the health of the hobby? I don't really necessarily know, because you could say that a lot of people came in and a lot of people were trying to pull cards that they thought were valuable because they were buying packs and they were buying boxes because they thought they were going to be pulling valuable cards out of those boxes, which Series 1, not the case for sure. And I thought, I like, the last kind of point I'll make here is, like, I saw an interesting tweet that somebody, I don't know if it was a breaker or it was somebody who bought, like, a hobby box or a hobby case, and they didn't really pull any, like, crazy, autos out of that Stadium Club. And it's one of the things where it's like, well, that's Stadium Club's not meant for crazy pulls, realistically. And I think that's what somebody said, and I did agree with that, but it makes me wonder, like, how did that person not know what they were really getting into, or were they even, I didn't really look into it as much as I saw the tweet and then I saw someone's reply. Were they maybe trolling? Because I think if you're looking at, like, a Stadium Club, like, nobody is, like, I wouldn't be going out to buy Stadium Club to try and get any of my money back, realistically. Like, that's just not, I don't think that's realistic whatsoever. Stadium Club is really, like, I know that people will say saying something is for collectors isn't maybe the right way to word it, but, like, it really is, like, if you are looking to just open cards and open packs, it's a really good product to open. So same with Series 1. Like, I think Series 1 is in that same kind of conversation. I don't think anybody is really, getting angry over what they're pulling out of Series 1. I think you probably know what you're getting yourself into, but I just, overall, I'll be interested to see over the next 2, 3, 4, 10 years where these print runs go. Like, and if we really start to see a significant decrease, or if we stay the ship and, maybe we do get into a point where, like, how much of this 2022 and 2023 product, like, is still unopened? Like, if there are this many cards, like, there must be so much of this product that is still either sitting in back room somewhere, sitting on some sort of shelves. And this also gets into the question that I keep coming up with things that I almost wish I could talk about on the podcast because they're just concepts. I almost wonder if Topps eventually one day will come out with some sort of, like I've talked about, a buyback program with, like, if you open, because they're doing that with like the tens, I think it's called, like, or Fanatics Live is doing the tens. If you pull this product or you get the card, you get Fanatics, you get some Fanatics credit and stuff like that. So I think with this, like, one day are we going to be looking at, like, the 2023, 2022? Are we going to be looking at Fanatics one day, doing some sort of, I don't know, like, some sort of program where it's like if you open the card and you pull some sort of certain card, you get credit. I would like to see that, honestly, because, like I said, I think when the hobby is the most healthy is when it's self-sustaining, and when somebody can go and buy a box and, make 50% to 100% of their money back, and then continue to spend within the hobby and within the industry. In my opinion, that's when I think the hobby is most healthy, because you can buy cards and feel like you're getting valuable cards, but when you are getting those valuable cards, if you're somebody who's just looking to continuously buy and sell, it is another way for people to do that. And so I'm wondering, I don't think Series 1 has never really been like that necessarily, but like with these print runs, I just wonder one day if we're going to look back and say, wow, like this was either horrific, this was just not a good year for the hobby, or if it's just going to be a blip on the radar and, things are going to kind of come back down to normal a little bit, and we're going to start to see some of these print runs decrease as, Fanatics starts either getting more licenses or as just more years go by with Fanatics working with Topps. So Prism Basketball is set to be released in the next, like, week or so. I would imagine it's got to be the next week or so, because they just came out with first off the line Prism Basketball. Sorry, I don't know if I made that obvious enough. I think football's been out. So Prism Basketball, first off the line, sold out on Panini's website for just over $1,200 a box. I was on Slabstock's page where I saw this, and I was looking through some of the comments. And I mean, I thought the top comment was very interesting, that the average collector can't afford the hobby anymore. Opening boxes used to be the best part of the hobby, and it's just not obtainable for the average person that doesn't want to spend $1,000 and only get a $150 return. Which, granted, I agree, but, first off the line, I think, is definitely a very significantly different product. Like, $1,200 is not going to be what you spend for, like, the regular Prism. First off the line, I think it has, I'm just looking at the configuration of the box. It says 2 autographs, and 22 prisms. So that could be any numbered prisms. That could be the silver prisms. But that comes with 2 autographs, and then I would imagine there's probably some first off the line exclusive cards that also come in that box. First off the line always confuses me, because it's one of the configurations that I always get. They always, I feel like, are changing it around, and it's always a little bit different in every single release. But the one thing that I think is interesting about Prism is that I know that I've talked about that being like Panini's flagship product, but like the pricing of it, I do think is a little bit high compared to really what the cards you're getting out of this product. And I would be interested to know, like on yesterday's podcast, I talked about the amount of base cards for specific players within Topps Series 1. I would be interested to know if any of these numbers exist for Prism. I think Panini does. They do a little bit more of the odds on Panini, I don't think they do as well a job promoting as they do with Topps. Like, I'm actually not even 100% sure if Panini has the odds on the boxes at all. Like, I know Topps does on every single pack, they have the odds for what could come in that pack. But if I'm not mistaken, I don't think Panini does that at all. And I'm actually not going to really have an opinion on that, because I'm actually not 100% sure one way or the other. But I do think that's one reason why we don't see as many statistics on those types of things, like on how many cards there are. And, I mean, I think in the past, we definitely could see the significant difference between 2017 and 2018 because of the amount that was graded. And then 2019 and 2020, not as much. And I think actually after Zion's year is when grading really shifted within sports cards. Also because, like, right when Prism with LaMelo was supposed to come out, that's when grading shut down. Which, I think I speculated back then on probably my old show that I did with the, like, Heroes for Sale with, I I think that they probably shut down because they said, if we can't get to a certain number with the backlog, we can't have what is basically the biggest release within the hobby. We can't have that product really be sent in. Like, they couldn't have Prism Basketball sent in if they couldn't get the backlog to a certain price or a certain amount. So that's granted. I'm guessing that's probably why they shut down grading back in the day. Like, they're obviously back up now, but I do think that as they've opened up, I would be interested to know how many people, like, what is the difference in how many cards people are sending in from back then to now? Like, if sorry, excuse me. Like, Wembanyama, I think, may start, honestly, another resurgence in grading when it comes to these types, those cards. Like, I wouldn't be surprised if we see some crazy Wembanyama cards getting pulled, and then if we see, granted, we are, as with every big product that comes out, we're going to see a crazy price on the first card sold. We're going to see a crazy price on the first graded card sold. So, I always put out reminders. It's like, hey, everybody, relax a little bit. Like, because we know that this is going to happen. And it feels like, it feels like it has happened so many times, but for whatever reason, people within the hobby will still point to one of those sales and complain about it, even though it's like, it has literally happened for 4 or 5 years. Over the past 4 or 5 years, every single big release, every single first card sold, every single time, it's obviously a number that is not a realistic price for what that card ends up being. And I don't even think necessarily that Mac Jones card is, because that's the one example that I remember where it was like, yikes. I mean, I think they spent $3,000 on a Donruss PSA 10, which I would be surprised if those cards are worth $5 nowadays. Like, you probably could have bought for $3,000. I would honestly say you probably could buy almost the whole. You could almost buy probably every single PSA 10 Mac Jones Donruss for the $3,000. Like, I don't know off the top of my head how many there are, but like, you probably honestly could buy every single one. So it's like, that's going to happen. Just recognize that. Don't be surprised when you see posts about it, because that's another thing within sports cards and within content creation in general. You do see, you do see also, it does get good engagement. Like, that's one of the other things that I understand, it's one thing that for a while I would post about. Probably it's not something I necessarily focus on as much anymore, because it's really, that's the type of post, honestly, in my opinion, within sports cards that you're not going to get any positive interactions on. Interactions. I mixed two words there. Positive reactions or reactions. Any good reactions? Positive. Whatever. You know what I'm saying. But so it's the type of post where you're just, in my opinion, at least, anytime I posted something like that, sure, it did very well, but it never was like, you never got good comments, which, I don't know, when the sports cards, a lot of the time, you're not getting good comments, and I think that's kind of one of the things when it comes to just sports cards and people are negative about stuff online in general. It's like, that it gets good engagement because people are angry about it. And, some of the stuff that maybe might be good, it doesn't get as much engagement because people don't care as much to comment or, watch the whole thing for the outrage or whatever. But so, like I said, with Prism, we'll see what the prices of the boxes end up being for the regular Prism. But comparing, I just think it is interesting, like comparing Prism and Flagship for Topps, like, those are, I would say, they're flagship products, but like within Prism, it feels like, and I think I talked about this actually when I was talking about Prism football. It feels like, unfortunately, what has happened with Prism is that it was one of the products that, again, I'll use this example, was Prism valuable because people wanted it, or did people want it because it was valuable? Was it a chicken or the egg type situation? Like, which one really made Prism as popular as it became? But either way, it became extremely popular, and then Panini just kept printing it and kept printing it and kept printing it and kept printing it to the point where it's like, but the weird thing is, it's like, but the price has also increased. So it was like, it really almost seemed like a rug pull, in my opinion, a little bit. Like, it almost seemed like they kept increasing it to the point where it was like, people were super excited because they're like, yeah, I'm going to be able to sell these cards. It's going to be great. And then you pull the box, and there's so many cards, and it's just like, the cards are almost all worthless. Like, but for a while, they weren't. And for a while, Panini recognized that, and they continuously printed it. So I guess we'll see. With Prism Basketball, maybe it's going to be a little bit different because there's less players, like there's less rookies within Prism Basketball maybe than there is, or there's more. No, sorry, there's less. Wait, no, what am I trying to say? There's more desirable NBA rookies, maybe, potentially. I guess I'd have to look at the list now that I'm saying that out loud. I'm not 100% sure if that's correct or not. But the Prism Basketball, there, it feels like it should be like almost like a national hobby holiday, but it really has fizzled out a little bit. And I think that, in my opinion, it's because Panini really just kind of printed that thing into the ground, and they really didn't really care about what they were doing. They just wanted to, and it's the same thing they did with Select. Like, Select used to be their best product, and because it was hobby only and it was harder to get, but you could still get it at like a reasonable price. But then they just they're just like, nope, it's in retail now. Like 2021, I think they're just like, nope, it's in retail. Like the whole concept and the whole thing that made Select really popular. Nope, it's in retail now. We don't really care. We're just gonna put it in retail. It's whatever. We're just gonna do it, and we're gonna print it. And it feels like they did something similar with Prism, where instead of necessarily putting it in retail versus hobby, they just continuously printed so much of it that made it so easy to find that maybe the desirability of the cards being hard to find really took a huge nosedive. And I think it is still very popular within the hobby, but it really feels like it could be such a product that's way more popular than it is if they had just kind of continued down the path and not increase the print runs and increase the production as much as they decided to do. It appears that the Topps announced some Messi autos in, I think probably like, I don't know, the Topps regular release had Messi as they added him into the checklist. I think his card is honestly like 201. Like, he's not a short print on the checklist, but he was added on a little bit later on in the process. This is one of the things that I guess I'm interested with Topps is like the distribution of products when something like this happens. Like, they have produced a lot of the cards probably already, and they probably packed a lot of the cards out. Like, do they mix up the distribution? Like, do they produce a bunch of the Messi cards and then put them in packs, and then put the packs in the boxes, and then they put the boxes into the cases, and then do they send those out? Like, how I would be interested to know how this works, because like the Messi card probably was not one that they anticipated making towards the beginning of the year. Then he obviously joins Miami in the middle of the season, and it was like one of the most monumental, at least in my opinion, I think it's one of the most monumental moments within American sports, is Messi coming to the United States and joining Miami FC. Now, Miami FC was not very good, and off the top of my head, I forget if they even made the playoffs. Like, I think they were actually one of the worst teams in the league. But it's like, if you are, and I think it's actually a pretty good representation of the United States in general. It's like, it's maybe similar with like LeBron. It's like, where do you want to go and live? Like, where do you want to live? Like, if you're Messi and you lived in Barcelona, you lived in Paris, you play for PSG, you play in Paris. If you go to the United States, like, where is the one place you want to live? Miami is probably one of the places that most people would want to live. Like, I've been to Miami multiple times, and it's actually one of my favorite. I think it's actually my favorite place to travel to, if I'm going to be completely honest. Like, I've gone on, other than like Disney, is probably the place where I've gone the most. Like, I think I've gone like 3 or 4 times to Miami. I've gone to South Beach. That's usually where I stay, at one of the hotels on the Strip. It is, I mean, look, it's, obviously I live in the Northeast, so it's like going to South Beach and going down south is obviously, it's hard to beat, if I'm going to be honest. Like, it's hard to really pick a place that's like any almost complete counter opposite of like the Northeast. But so here's the thing. So there were mystery redemptions apparently in this year's Topps MLS. It looks like it was because I'm looking at the redemption card that Topps posted, and it was a card that came out of let's see, MLS mystery redemption card reveal. There were remember you may remember that a couple years ago Topps did this with what product was it? It was a baseball product. They did it with, I think it was Vlad Guerrero and Fernando Tatis. I think it may have been, I don't remember what product it was now that I'm thinking about it off the top of my head, but Topps has done this like mystery. It was like a Bowman product, maybe. I forget off the top of my head what product it was, but Topps has done this mystery redemption concept in the past with some of the big names, and I'm conflicted on the idea, because on one hand, I love the idea of adding sort of a touch of mystery to some of these products, but on the same point, it's like if they're going to sell the boxes and stuff, they know who the mystery redemption is. Like, it's not a mystery, like they're selling a mystery redemption within these products and they know who it is. But or unless they're selling the boxes with the concept of the mystery redemption, and they're telling, hobby shops and people that are buying these boxes what the mystery redemption is, but they're just not telling the public. Because the thing that I saw, so Topps, even they came out with this news today that the mystery redemptions are going to be Messi on-card autographs. But apparently, the two 1-of-1, so if I had to guess, this is the Topps Chrome 1-of-1, and then the regular Topps 1-of-1, are still live, they're live within products. So those will not be included in some of the mystery redemptions. Now, this, again, I don't know how they're just distributing these products. Like, did they get some of the Messi autographs and they said, well, we can get some of these into the product, we can't get some of them, we can't get all of them? Maybe similar to what happened with Victor Wembanyama. Like, they were able to get some of the Victor Wembanyama autographs into products, not all of them. Maybe it's similar. Like, I'm not 100% sure, because there was the gold refractor mystery redemption parallel, which gold would probably mean it's probably numbered to 50. If I had to guess, that would mean that they probably got, I don't know, the 1-of-1s. That's maybe the only Messi auto they got into the product. And then the rest of the mystery redemptions. So when it comes to Topps, that means 1-of-1, there's red number to 5. I think that would be blue number to 50, green number to 99. And then I think it goes up to 150, and then I forget where it goes from 150 to what. And with MLS, like, I don't even know if these numbers are the same throughout all these products, because MLS is definitely a smaller product. So like the chances they have all of these autos in the product is maybe a little bit less. But like I said, I think I do like the concept of the mystery autos. I do hope that they are able to figure out a way to sell the product to people without, because here's the thing with the mystery autos. The two times that they've really done the mystery autos have been, I remember what it was. It was Vladimir Guerrero and it was Eloy Jimenez in, I forget what product it was, but it was they were the two players that were in, I don't remember what product it was, but those were the two players that were a mystery auto. It was mystery auto A and mystery auto B. I vividly remember them being the mystery autos, but I don't remember the product. I think it was, I almost feel like it could have been Bowman Chrome, like their rookie Bowman Chrome. I think that's maybe what it would have been. And now they're doing mystery autos again with Messi. So they're choosing probably some of the biggest names. Because if we go back to when Vladimir Guerrero and Eloy Jimenez were rookies. Like, those were the two big names within that rookie year. So now Messi obviously not a rookie, but like this Messi auto, the Miami FC, the Inter Miami FC auto, it's the biggest card in the whole entire product. So like, they're choosing the biggest names to be mystery. So I hope that going forward they decide that the biggest names are going to be the ones that get the mystery redemptions. Like, if they like, granted, Messi is probably the biggest name they could have chose for this mystery redemption. So whatever they choose next will, unfortunately, will probably be a little bit of a downgrade. Now, they went from, like I said, from, at least from my memory, I don't know if they have done the mystery redemptions from when they did the Vladimir Guerrero, Eloy Jimenez to the Messi. It's going to be it's probably going to be a little bit of a downgrade, whoever they choose next, because it's like Messi is the biggest name they could have gotten, really, for a mystery redemption within sports, in my opinion. Ronaldo, maybe LeBron, potentially, like, maybe they'll do LeBron for some mystery autos. Like, that could be, I would say, unless they do LeBron, the person that they choose for the next mystery auto could be a downgrade, or the mystery redemption auto, unfortunately, will probably be a downgrade. But for this, like I said, for this MLS product, they really are stepping up pretty big with who they chose to be this mystery auto, because it's Messi, who, like I said, is, I think, one of the biggest moves for American sports was bringing Messi here. Next year, it'll be very interesting. I mean, I know that Messi will be playing the Revolution at home here, so maybe I'll buy some tickets. Maybe to see Messi play is just, it's once in a lifetime, because he only has so many years left. Like, unfortunately, I think Messi chose to come here to the United States, and Ronaldo went to Saudi Arabia. I think Ronaldo could have came here, and he could have probably gotten a very similar type deal, and he could have continued to be as popular as he is. Unfortunately, he did not choose that, and that means basically Messi, I think, is going to become more mainstream here, and within this Topps MLS product, he was the mystery redemption, which I think is probably the biggest mystery redemption Topps will have. Like I said, unless they choose LeBron in some sort of product coming in the near future. So this will probably be, I don't know, unless there's some major news, this will probably be one of the last times that I complain about Prism. Specifically, I'm going to be talking about Prism basketball, because the checklist is out, and people have been crunching the numbers, and there are 63 unique parallels in this year's Prism basketball. Now, there aren't any Victor Wembanyama autographs, because I believe he has a exclusive with Fanatics, and Fanatics is just going to continue to scoop up these athletes until they get the product. But again, it feels like, I don't know, it just feels like, and I hate to, and I think people honestly have been saying this for a couple years, and the clickbait title of the podcast or the YouTube video, I honestly think has a little bit come to fruition here. Like, for years, people were like, Panini ruined Prism. They've ruined it by too many parallels, and I always thought, it was maybe a little bit too, I always thought it was a little bit too overblown. Like, the parallels are cool, it gives people an opportunity to get any type of different card they want. Maybe it helps the prices of cards, bring them down. But it just feels like so from last year, there were 52 parallels, which I still think is overboard. Like, the 52 different types of parallels within one product is, like, ridiculous. Within flagship baseball, I think that there's, 10 to 12, maybe 15 at the most. I can't imagine there's more than that. But, like, the problem is, like, not all of it, because then we get into just, some of these are short printed. Like, just looking at the list, like, more than probably about a third of the list is short printed without numbered. Now, if they wanted to come out with 63 unique parallels and they were all going to be numbered, it would still be a little bit of overkill. I think, in my opinion. But I think numbering all the short prints makes it at least something where it's like, it makes the cards, in my opinion, a little bit better. Like, just looking at the names of these parallels, you got three 1-of-1s. And again, these are sort of issues that I've talked about on different podcasts and different things, but it's like you've got purple prisms, and then you got choice red prisms, and then you got multi-wave prisms, and purple fast break prisms, red power prisms. It's like, at what point, like, at some point, like, I don't even know what can be done about this. This is just like, it's insane that it's insane that Panini took, again, they did this with Select. They took what was probably their best product, and they made such a massive shift to it, and they made it one of their worst products, because Select was very similar to this, where they had a ton of parallels, but there was also the 3 different tiers. There was like, within football and basketball, they're called something different, but there was like 1 to 100, and then 101 to 200, and then 201 to 300, where there was 3 sets of the base card, with each of them being more rare and more rare as you got farther along. So like Wembanyama, for example, is going to have probably 3 different select base cards, with, the one that's numbered, I don't know what it'll be numbered 264 or something like that. That's going to be the most rare. But then, within that rarity, they also had all of the, like, colored parallels with all of these cards. So it's like, and again, I'm just looking at this, like, there's 1, 2, 3. I mean, there's like 3 basically of every set of each of the different numbers. Like, the farther you get down, I mean, there's 3 1-of-1s, there's 3 numbered to 5s, there's 3 numbered to 8s, 3 numbered to 10. 2 numbered to 20, 2 different parallels numbered to 20. And it's just like, at what point, it's unfortunate. And that's it. I guess if you want to look at it and say, honestly, well, Panini is trying to make Prism their flagship product and make it so they can just print a ton of it, and continuously, the same way that they do with the Topps with flagship. They just want to keep printing it and keep printing and keep doing it. It just feels like, I don't know. Because the other problem is, like, when people first saw the images, like, I understand that they have to get these images from a photo shoot, from the rookie premiere, or they have to get them from, some of them were photoshopped, but, like, just cut out the background entirely. Like with Luka and with like Trae Young in 2018, they just cut out the background entirely. If you look at the Victor Wembanyama card, there's like, you can clearly see the curtain. There's a curtain that he's standing in front of, and that's what it's like for a lot of these rookies. It just really feels like such a lazy approach to what was at one point the best product within the hobby. Sure, maybe it was a little bit harder to find, but that also maybe helped. That made it a little bit better to chase because it was harder to find. Now, when it was harder to find and you could still find it in retail, that was sort of maybe, or you could find it at like a hobby shop. You could find the $20 blaster for $30 at a hobby shop or something like that. Those were, I think, probably, that's what I did when Zion, the 2019 Prism. Like they didn't have any at Target, so on Prism release day, I went to like the hobby shop that I live near, and they had them there for $30, which granted, that's a little bit of a markup, but like if you look at those boxes now, the blaster of 2019 Prism is like, or it was a couple months ago, I don't know if it's still like that, but it was like $250 for like what was a $20 box when it originally came out. And, the chase of finding those cards was actually good, was actually fun, because like you would be able to maybe go to a store, 2 or 3 stores, and at least find one of the things. Now, when people came in and Prism was the product that everyone wanted, a lot of people were just buying all the Prism, which I think then led to them putting the limits on how many you can buy, which I'm not 100% sure if they still have these limits on these products. I know the Target or at least the Walmart near me still does have like a 2 product limit. Which, granted, I mean, there's so much of it, like, you probably, if you really wanted to, they probably would let you, like, or if you went to self-checkout, I mean, that's kind of the other hack to this, like, just ring out 2, ring yourself out, ring out another 2, and you're probably fine. Now, granted, some Walmarts do have the people checking the receipts, so I don't know. They may question you, be like, oh, I don't know, I just was doing this, I used 2 different cards, or something along those lines. There's probably ways you can get around it. But what Panini has done to this product, and like it really feels like I am like the Simpsons meme where it's like the old man yelling at the cloud. It just feels like I'm sitting here being like, someone needs to do something about this, but it's like, obviously there's nothing that can be done. Like, I'm sitting here looking at the checklist with 63 different unique parallels on it, and I'm like, someone needs to do something about this. Like, they can't just do this. They can't, what is it from Breaking Bad? They can't keep getting away with this. They can't just keep coming out with these products and getting away with, like, watering down this product to the point where it's like I said, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21. There's 21 of the 63. So yeah, 1/3, like I said earlier in the podcast, are non-numbered parallels. Now, back in the day, it was like you had, I don't remember how many there were with 2018, but it was really like, you had the silver, you had the red, white, and blue, you had like maybe 20 different parallels, but like they were all like felt desirable. And one of the other things is like people like collecting the rainbows. Like, that's one of the ways that people collect these cards. And 63 different cards is like, that's just ridiculous. Like, for somebody, and I don't know what the percentage of people that do that is necessarily. And Panini clearly just doesn't care. They're clearly just like, we're just going to come out with as much of this product as we can, and we don't care that half of it is going to sit on the shelves, again, probably because they've already pre-sold a ton of this product. Like, this product was already pre-sold to whoever was buying it in distributors. So it's like they can just, I don't know, maybe, and I guess it's obviously, if you're a hobby shop, you can't just not buy Prism. But it's like, it's not a customer. I feel like it's not the customers that really could do anything here. It feels like it's the distributors and companies that pre-purchased this product that really were the ones that like allowed Panini to do this, which again, it's everybody's trying to make money here. And I think I'm not going to discourage anyone from trying to make money, but this is just ridiculous. Like, this is just, it's over the top. It's a 20% increase, and it's like, Topps, like I said on earlier podcast or earlier episode this week, like, they potentially have decreased their print run, where Panini is just going the complete opposite, which, like I said, at this point, I would be, I also, like I said, I would be interested to know how much, like, where the configuration comes into the process of putting together this product. Like when people are buying the product, like, or people, I'm talking about companies like distribution and the people like at stores, like, if they're buying this product, do they have this list? Like, or is it the other way around, where they sell the product and then they put up and then they do the configurations? Or is this like, could this be like some sort of contract situation? Because that's what would make sense to me if you're running a business, is to lock people into a contract and then just increase, and then do this. If some hobby shop or some distributor signed a contract a couple years ago that said, we're going to buy Prism for 4 years in a row, no matter what, and they give them the money up front, do they look at it and say, well, we can just increase the number of parallels, we can increase it 21%, because it's like, we already sold the product, so we'll just continuously, we'll continuously make the product, and we'll make it in different ways that we can sell it. We can sell more, like, because that's what a lot of these parallels are. The additional parallels are probably going to be in like direct-to-consumer products, fast break, first off the line, stuff along those lines, like the purple prisms, the blue, the white prisms, the red prisms. Like, those are just going to be coming in regular hobby boxes. But like, you got lucky envelope prisms and green shimmer first off the line. I mean, that's pretty typical. But then you got like bronze fast break prism. I'm just looking at these lists, and it's like, again, this is probably one of the last years that we'll have to deal with this type of thing within Panini, because I really hope that Fanatics looks at this and they say, I would love for Fanatics to come out and say, we are not going to do this. Like, this, if we're not going to, I don't know. Like I said, it's a business move, and I don't like it. And it's, it's an unfortunate, I guess it's unfortunate. I mean, maybe it makes it so people can get Prism, but It just seems like they decided that all of a sudden they were like, yeah, we're just going to turn the printers on and we're not going to shut them off because we can make money, and we know that we can make money because we already have made the money. Like, the money is already in our bank account, so we're just going to make this product a way that makes us more money than we've already made, and we don't really care what happens on the secondary market. We don't care what happens to these cards after the fact. Like, we don't as a company, we don't really care what happens to people within the hobby when they try and buy this product, because of like the fact that they already have the money, and that's what I think probably happened here. So, luckily, like I said, this is, I guess, one of the last years we're going to have to deal with this type of thing, and I'll be interested to see next year. I forget if Panini has the basketball license. I think they do next year as well. So I'll be interested to see if this parallel number goes up or goes down, or what exactly they even decide to do here.